On this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a consultant in life sciences. I help companies untangle processes, streamline systems, and bring order to chaos so that they can operate efficiently and maximize their productivity with really keeping their goals and clarity at ease. So this weekend on Life Science Success, my guest is Donald Zinn. Don is the Vice President of U.S. Business at Crossject. And this is probably one of the coolest technologies that I've actually got to demo myself. And so I really look forward to getting to dive in here, Don, and talk about Crossject and all the great stuff that you guys are doing. With that, would you mind just providing just a little bit of a summary in terms of your background and what it is that you've done?
Sure, Don. I've been in the industry for almost 30 years now. Started at with an undergrad at UMBC. Great school, bang for the buck. Always been a great school for young, compelling scientists coming out of there. Went on to USHUS, the Uniformed Services University. Invented dry process microarray in my first semester, and decided to run with that. Licensed it to a few groups. Enjoyed that side of things, and then realized that somebody else had invented something at the same time that he decided to give all of his patents to the world, and that is why we all use wet process microarray. But having played in the business side of it, I just fell in love with that. Became the lab manager at Georgetown University's HIV Center, spun a for-profit out of that called Genetic Immunity, and then it just was one company after the next through oncology, infectious disease, bone, just having lots of fun in the industry. And then Crossject came up just as COVID hit. And I fell in love with the project. I thought the idea of needle-free auto-injection was the cat's meow. There is just so much fun there and so many possibilities as it's a full platform.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I honestly wasn't really aware of, until you had reached out to me, and then we had the quick conversation at Bio last year. Maybe so just to kind of show everybody, and then I could show the video as well. So when we met last year, you brought this device. So essentially, this is the needle-free injector. You have me pop off this cap and it goes rolling across the table. I reminded myself of that whenever I watched the video, which everybody will see in just a minute. And then this end that doesn't have any needles on it does the injection. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to mention, and then we can maybe go to the video and come back to the interview if that's okay.
No, and it's amazing how easy it is to use, and how someone who has only utilized the device once in his entire life still remembers how to use it from 6 months ago. That is the key to this project. The Zenio auto-injector by Crossject is quite literally the easiest auto-injector out there. And as we come to the market next year with our first product, we're excited that patients will have such an easy product to utilize.
All right. So before I go to the next scene, which it will be there as well, and people will get to see us as well. But in the middle, you're going to see a video. And I just want to describe this video a little bit. So on the table, there's a simulated place where we're going to inject, this solution. At the very top is a piece of cloth, which is supposed to simulate like a person wearing clothes as
It's an
well.
actual piece of Levi's denim.
Okay. And then you see my very clumsy attempt, I would say, at actually doing an injection, and it still works. And that's I think it pays a great tribute to what you just said as well. So let me go to the video, and then we can come back to the interview and sort of talk a little bit more about you and the career that you have in Crossject and things like that. But here we go.
Terrific, Don.
Yep.
Okay. There we go. Goes up, part, and then push it down. Wow. That's beautiful. And so, the blue liquid that was injected could be, I assume, a lot of different drugs, but and a lot of different things as well. But I'll leave it back to you to
Exactly,
to
Don. And as you see in the video, the injection takes 1/10 of a second. Once you press the device onto the skin, it injects. You can't flinch away. 1/10 of a second is a very short period of time. Basically a foolproof auto-injector. And yes, you're absolutely right. A number of items can go in there. You can imagine emergency medicines such as epinephrine or midazolam for epileptic seizures can be in this. And not only could a caregiver give this, but in the case of epinephrine, I myself being deathly allergic to bees, I've given myself multiple EpiPens. I am so ready to get the Zenio auto-injector so I don't have to worry about a needle. I mean, I'm needle phobic. I'm terrified of needles, but I can still give myself the injection. But there's a large population out there that is totally terrified. And even though they get prescriptions from their doctors, they may not fill them. They may fill the prescription and they may not use it. I mean, an emergency situation, not sticking yourself is crazy. But here we are. We've removed the needle. We've made it safer. We've made it quicker. We're not asymmetric. I mean, we are asymmetric. We're not symmetrical like a pen-shaped object. We know which end is up. So getting it right with this device is easy.
Yeah. And I think about that as well, that if somebody were not familiar and you were having a reaction to a bee sting, how many times could they get it wrong, in the process of trying to give you an injection, especially whenever you need it. I mean, if you're at a point where you can't give yourself the injection already, it's pretty far gone in terms of, the anaphylactic shock that you're in at that point, I would assume. And having something that's clear, would be just paramount.
Exactly, Don. And this comes down to our engineering team as well as our human factors team. They have done a brilliant job continually making this easier to use. And I believe in our most recent study, a human factors study, we demonstrated that the naive user gets this right 99.6% of the time. And if you look at any other injector, nasal system, they're much lower than that.
Yeah. All right. So let's kind of circle back on you and your career. So you talked a lot about the career history that you've had. How has that contributed to the things that you're doing now with Crossject?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. When you look at the business development side of our industry, you realize that it's actually a very small, closely knit group. I mean, I'm in contact with every business development head throughout the world of almost every pharmaceutical company who may be interested in this. And since this is a ubiquitous technology that can be utilized with pretty much any injectable, as we are not limited by viscosity and type of drug. We can do large molecules, small molecules, antibodies, whatever. The technology itself is I guess the next step. If you can garner, let's say you've got $1 billion drug out there, and you can garner that 15% of the population that's needle phobic with your drug in our device, you're going to get 15% more market share. And we've seen people duking it out for 0.5% for this drug or that drug. And here we are, hey, we'll get you 15% without a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, yeah. And, to me, it's one of those things as well that, you're thinking in advance of, the critical things that might need to be delivered by this device as well.
Exactly. I think I'm having a little bit of a glitch here. But you're absolutely right, Don. The number of different things that can be injected, and that, so many emergency drugs and so many drugs that, that people can't live without. These drugs need to be delivered. And if you're needle phobic and don't deliver them, the downfall is it's your life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the things I'll just mention the glitch for a second. So being live, it's one of the things that we'll go through is, occasionally we will have bandwidth issues. The good news is, your answers came through loud and clear. So, your video may break up, but, hopefully the audio is still there for anybody that's watching or listening. So all good. So in terms of, being at the forefront of a lot of different technologies, I'm sure that you've seen, both some of the challenges as well as the triumphs, in terms of delivering these technologies. What have you encountered, with bringing, new technologies from concept to market?
Sure. So, decades ago, we all decided, at least in the injectable world, that it's great to be able to inject drugs. It's a quick way in, but there are people that don't want needles, and if you start sticking kids with needles when they're young, the possibility of becoming needle phobic is pretty good. The idea would be, if we can invent a needle-free device, then we don't need the needles. So what happened was, and let's talk about naloxone. I mean, let's talk about the 800-pound elephant. We have an opioid problem in this country. Naloxone is a cure or a safety valve, and we don't want to stick someone with a needle while they're going through this. We want to do something else. So the invention of the nasal. Okay, great. Unfortunately, with the nasal, you give a lot more drug. You have variation in the absorption in the nasal passages of the drug. So the PK/PD studies demonstrate, pretty interesting curves. So what Crossject did was said, well, that's an interesting way to go, but let's just get rid of the needle. Let's keep the injection. So if we can inject, still stay area under the curve, hit these, beautiful peaks, no reason why there needs to be another area. Also, the nose is a very small target. We're talking about a thigh here for an injection. Pretty hard to miss a thigh.
Right. Yeah. Well, and two, not having to worry about clothes. I mean, that was the amazing thing for me with the demo that I saw, right? Was just the fact that, you don't need bare skin at all. It's just straight through the clothing as well.
Right. In an emergency situation, sure, you can fire through clothing. Of course, that brings in other issues. But as the emergency services or the FDA will tell you, let's take care of that epileptic seizure. Let's take care of that that food allergy that the child is having. You know what? We'll fix the potential of an infection from that injection later. Let's do what has to be done for the emergency injection. Now, for other injection purposes, of course, you would utilize a swab to clean the area and inject as you normally would. If we go for something like a biologic, which is another incredible area here, where you're looking at some of these new biologic drugs that are selling billions and billions of dollars, and grabbing the needle phobic side of that would be tremendous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. excuse me. So, with your work in as a commercialization grant reviewer for the NIH's Grant Readiness Program, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Can you talk about your experience with that, and what is your perspective, on the commercialization of biotech innovations?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. So I volunteer as a commercialization grant reviewer for the NIH, along with a team of about 60. And we see, especially during COVID, I mean, we see things all the time, but 2 or 3 times a year, we all get together and review some of the latest and greatest technology coming out there. And that is the reason why I do it. I mean, I get to see some of the most interesting stuff coming out. These are grants being submitted from all over the world, and uh, wow, I'd never heard of this stuff before. Never, realized that was capable. But it is so neat to see that technology. Also, as a business development person, it's giving me a nice look at some very early technologies and giving me some great ideas. But it's a great program for anyone that wants to give back to our industry. I think it's a wonderful prospect.
Yeah, and how did you get started with that? What sort of led you to say, hey, look, I would like to go do this?
Yeah, a shout out to an old friend who introduced me to that program. He had been told by one of the grant managers or something that they were short on people and they were looking for more business sided people. I mean, I'm a scientist by training, but I've been in the business side for almost 3 decades now, and I can see a technology and understand it's the science behind it, but I can also see, is this does this have a commercially viable path forward? Can this be a business? Can this be a successful product? So being able to put both sides of the equation together really helps the NIH on these commercialization paths. But yeah, that's how I came to be. It was just introduced to me by a friend, and I'm doing the same thing now. Introducing it to you and your viewers.
Yeah, I think I mean, it sounds to me like a tremendous opportunity, and just a great way to sort of see a lot of things across probably a relatively short period of time, as well.
It is. We only review for, I guess I'm not supposed to tell timing, but I mean it is a lot of stuff. I mean, we spend the whole day from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. reviewing these things, and with very little break time. But just some really deep conversations from all sides of the industry.
Yeah, great opportunity. So moving to your current role at Crossject, um, can you describe a little bit of what it is that you do? What is sort of your focus overall? There are a lot of people that watch this podcast, and some of them, are looking at like, hey, I'd like to get into business development, and sort of would love to know what it's like to be, in this role, at the standpoint that you are, with this technology.
Yeah, it's fun. I've tried the CEO role. I've tried the bench scientist. I love business development. I've stuck with it for 25 some odd years now, um, in a business development aspect, and it's boy, it's one, building a huge network of people you like to work with. Then it's taking the product, in the case of Crossject, and finding the right partner. And I'm not talking about here in the US only, I'm talking about the entire world. We have patents on this everywhere. So the idea is to literally find the best partner in Japan, the best partner in China, the best partners in Europe, um, wherever, South America, wherever it is, but finding the best partner for each product. So the partner we may select in the US for epinephrine it may not be the same as we select for midazolam. These are two different areas of the industry, and they may not be exacting. But finding the right partner who will support the product moving forward, explain it to patients in the right way, um, be a be a great partner for us. Drive the market. Demonstrate why our product is better than the existing standard. Um, these are all things we do as business development, not only cutting and closing deals. That's just the beginning. Once you've closed a deal, the partnership then just begins. And finding a good partner is a tough but exciting part of my life. I really enjoy it. I live for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely is an exciting part of I feel like every business, because you go from that standpoint of having a research, project or whatever, to, trying to convert it to a business, and really having, converting it to a business is getting traction in those first partnerships and sales and things like that. And what you hope, I think, for any business is that it's not just a brief, sort of moment in time. Instead, it's an ongoing partnership that happens over time.
Absolutely. And if you look at the partnerships that are public out there that we have, there are they are great groups that are passionate about the disease state they're working in, and we're excited to work with them as we bring this project forward. And of course, we don't yet have a product on the market, but we've de-risked this system. We've proven the delivery in an intramuscular setting as well as a subcutaneous setting, so the device is successful in its delivery of molecules. We've successfully delivered lots of small molecules, a number of large molecules, including fusion proteins and DNA-based vaccines. And when you're injecting at the speeds we're talking about, this is only 1/10 of a second to get a sizable volume in. There are no shearing forces, or no true shearing forces associated with our device. So, doesn't matter what the molecule is, as long as we fit the parameters and work together with a partner, we've proven out the project. All we need to do now is, at least for the first drug, is get our emergency use authorization, and then our marketing authorization in the U.S. and Europe. And I think once we have those two in hand, the partnerships will come by the plenty.
Yeah.
But we're constantly working on it. I've been to Japan this year. I've been to Europe. I've been all over the U.S. Meeting everybody at J.P. Morgan, as well as everybody at the Bio International Convention, the Japanese Bio Convention. There are just all kinds of events we attend so that we can continue to introduce this needed technology to everyone out there who may be interested.
Very good. So in terms of the, doing your job during COVID must have been extremely difficult. And then, transitioning to now, I would imagine that it's a lot better because you can attend conferences and things like that with some level of caution, because there's still people that are going to conferences and getting sick. And then, but at the same time, there's a lot more face-to-face interaction that's going on now versus COVID. How is that transition for you?
They are. The nice thing is, in our industry, you're getting the vaccine. There's no doubt about it. I think I'm on my 6th dose now. It was interesting. You had the mask on for the 2.5 years there, just as I was brought on to Crossject. So I did have a few face-to-face meetings, being based in the U.S. and being centrally located in the U.S. I was able to get to a few things, some small events during COVID, but no, most of the time it was Zoom meetings like we're doing here, and loads of demonstrations showing the video you showed. It's compelling, but until you get that device in your hand and fire it for the first time, and you can speak to this, it's exciting. You're like, oh wow, that's right. Cool. We have a video. Yeah. We have a video series called The Wow, and it's it is cool. I show it just to our staff to keep them motivated. But it is leaders in our industry just going, wow, 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 firing off this device. And it's so uplifting to see people accept this technology.
Yeah. It is amazing from that standpoint. And really, I look forward to seeing, a lot of different things that that your device is being delivered or used for the delivery of. Crossject's approach in terms of emergency medication really is revolutionary, though. And can you talk a little bit more about how it, how does the technology work? And then also what sets it apart in terms of traditional methods?
Sure. Well, one, we've removed the needle. So as you press against the skin, a small pyrotechnic charge is created, which makes a gas, and the gas drives the plunger. That's the basics of this technology. And then it's delivering it at high speed through a nozzle that is designed to maintain a zero point 0.4 millimeter stream. So the stream is the needle in this case, but it is the same diameter as, say, a 27 gauge needle, but it's going so much faster. We've all seen the video of the EpiPen stuck in, and you slowly get this drug coming out, and some of the new biologics where you stick it in and you wait to 10 seconds and you're looking at a window, and meanwhile, this needle is in you. The chances of laceration, I mean, you sneeze, you move, somebody bumps into you. There's all kinds of problems that can happen with a needle. These drugs are great, but let's get rid of that needle. And in this technology, I mean, it's speed, it's ease of use. There's just so many positives about it. Watching the history of Crossject, where for over 20 years they had an idea and they have optimized it so well. They're truly the greatest auto-injector made to date.
Yeah, it's an amazing technology to, from my standpoint, in terms of getting to operate it as well. So in terms of your career, what's the greatest leadership advice that you've ever received?
Oh boy, I think one of the funny ones is I was visiting the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And they had the head of business development for Pfizer giving a lecture. And he said, my administrative assistant puts a stack of papers on my desk every morning, and she has them alphabetized A through Z, A on top. Said, I grab the first one and I start going through them. And by the time I get to M, whatever, the day is over.
Never makes it to Z.
Yeah. And the next day I come in and there's a new pile. Excuse me. And it's funny, I think it was mentioned 2 or 3 years later that the number of companies that start with the letter A went up exponentially. If you look at the list of pharmaceutical companies, there are a whole bunch of A's, a few B's, C, and then it goes down. But then you look maybe 5 years after that, so now we're talking about the early 2000s, suddenly people are numbering their companies. Mm-hmm. So they jump over top of the A's. So it is cute. And so what I was told was, hey, make sure you always start a company with the letter A. So I started a company called Arsos and Armune and no, not Armune, sorry, but that was another one of our family companies. Arsos and AzoRx and Artesian Therapeutics. So all these A's in my history.
All
it is
because,
kind of funny.
Yeah,
all because the head of Pfizer business development said, do this. And, people listen. But yeah, no, that's probably the cutest anecdote I've ever done. The other one I would tell people is raise money when you can raise money, not when you need to raise money. If the market is open, get capital. This is a very capital intense industry, and we need to make sure that good projects move forward. And so many good projects fall to the wayside because of lack of capital.
Yeah. And it's funny to me because there are many founders that, at least early on in my consulting career, that I ran into that they would raise funds and then they would stop. and then, they would go through a period of time where they weren't raising any funds at all, and then they would start raising funds again. We've been through this sort of, classic winter inside of life sciences, like is what I call it, where, a lot of companies just aren't getting funded no matter what. And so if you're not nonstop fundraising, my guess is you're putting your company at risk, because, it realistically could run into a situation where, look, you just can't support doing the next thing tomorrow.
Yeah, Don, in my opinion, there are quite a number of startup companies where a brilliant scientist has a great idea, but then also tries to be the CEO.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you're a brilliant scientist, you got a great idea, move that idea forward, hire yourself a CEO, be the chief scientific officer, do what you love, do your passion. CEOs that are brilliant scientists and try to do both at the same time, it is very rare.
Yeah. It's one of the classic discussions as well, is just, how do you build a business along with continue the science, and in doing both is a very difficult thing to have have that balance with. And so if you you want to be a practicing scientist that is the CEO of a company, you can hire a COO to support the business building side of it. But at the same time, it's a great way to also think about, how do I step back to the things that I'm good at and the things that I love, right? How do I really, maximize those?
And this goes back to my work at the NIH. We actually have a granting program, and you'll have to look it up. And this is part of their homework, that actually pays for your business development person to come into the company. So this is where they can help. So sure, the scientists can get some funding from the NIH and to move the science forward, but he can also get the funding to get the business to move forward. And I've heard from everybody, you don't need a business development person until you have a product. Well, you know what? The best way to find out how to move your product forward is to have your business development person go to the Pfizers of the world and say, hey, you know what? What compelling experiment can my scientist do that would intrigue you about this product?
Yeah, absolutely.
You go to 10 big pharma and you ask them that question, you're going to get 5 different answers, but you're going to get the same answer from 5 of them.
Right.
That's the experiment you do to create and drive the product forward to get big pharma interested in your project.
Very good. So Don, there are 3 questions that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
New technology. Very excited about new technology and the use of technologies. And when I say technology, I mean everything from molecules to devices. Yeah, very excited about seeing new things. And actually, one of the fun things I love to do when I go to these conferences is I do meet a lot of startup companies that have new molecules. And I go, I already know they're injectables, but I'm like, okay, could this work in our injector? What is that market size? What is, so it's always fun to see new technology.
Yeah, absolutely. What concerns you?
Lack of understanding by the layperson of our industry. Everybody's begging for lower prices on drugs. Guess what, America? Drugs cost money to develop. If we don't spend that money to develop them, you're going to be using 50-year-old drugs to support your disease, and there won't be any innovation. So please understand our industry and understand why drugs cost money.
Yeah, and I mean, to that point, right? We've had conversations on the podcast as well about PBMs and their interaction in terms of our industry. I look at the amount of money that goes back to our government, to people that are supposed leaders in our government that honestly can't get anything done currently. Not to bring the political aspect into this, but the reality is, whenever you're paid good money to go represent me and you. Your job is to go represent me and you, not to fight amongst each other or not get anything done. So get stuff done. Stop bickering.
Don, I will make a statement here, broad based on all workers. Do your job.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
If you're hired to sell a product to big pharma, do it. If you're hired to work for the people to get them whatever it is, do your job.
Right. Right. Yeah. Also true.
That's my political statement.
Last question. What excites you?
Oh, the chase for the deal. I get so excited about it, and I think my staff feeds off of me in that respect. I love chasing down a deal. I love closing deals, but the chase is just so much fun.
Yeah, I think I think that's something that's inherent in people, especially that really love both business development and sales. There's something in sort of how things come about and how it results in, that end state that really is fun for people that enjoy this. So thank you for sharing that.
Thanks, Don. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Donald Zinn, thanks so much for being on the Life Science Success podcast and for, coming on and sharing with us, all the great things about Crossject and the things that you're working on. I look forward to seeing the next step of this company. So, please, continue to let us know and, we'll continue to invite you back in terms of giving us updates as well.
My pleasure, Don. And I hope to see everybody at Quad AI, DCAT, Bio Japan, and JP Morgan later in this year and next year. So seek me out and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Very good. All right. Thanks. Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it. And last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.